O come, Emmanuel, and with your captive children dwell. Give comfort to all exiles here, and to the aching heart be cheer. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come within us love to dwell. O come, you splendor very bright, as joy that never yields to might. O come and turn all hearts to peace, that greed and war at last shall cease. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come within us truth to dwell. O come, you day spring, come and cheer our spirits by your presence here, and dawn in every broken soul as vision that can see the whole. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come within us light to dwell. O come, you wisdom from on high, from depths that hide within a sigh, to temper knowledge with our care, to render every act a prayer. Rejoice, rejoice, Emmanuel shall come within us hope to dwell.
Welcome, welcome, welcome to our community Church Unitarian Universalist. I am your minister, Reverend Darcy Roque, and it is a joy to be with you virtually here today. So who are we as community church? We are a progressive, open-minded, and inclusive religious community. We welcome all who are on a spiritual search for truth and meaning. Ours is a faith in action as we do the work of social justice and elevate compassion in our quest to live ethically, recognizing the inherent worth and dignity of every being. I am so delighted that at our pulpit today will be Alison McCrary. Alison is a spiritual advisor on Louisiana's death row, a Catholic activist, a social justice movement lawyer, a restorative justice practitioner, and a tribal citizen of the Ani-Yun-Wiya United Cherokee Nation. She ministers as a national criminal justice reform strategist, supporting about 50 formerly incarcerated people-led nonprofits, and a professor and practitioner-in-residence at Wake Forest Divinity School in North Carolina. She is also an amazing and wonderful human being. Her sermon today will be on birthing love into the world, incarnating and opening a space for the divine to dwell within us. As she tells us, the Christian season of Advent tells the story of Mary, the mother of Jesus, making a physical home for the Holy One in her womb and in the world. We too are called by the God of many names to make a dwelling place within ourselves and the world. We too are prophetically called to birth love, justice, mercy, hope, and compassion every day through our words and actions. How will you be preparing the manger of your heart during this time? The divine takes up residence not in glorious buildings beautifully adorned, but in the humblest of persons, in the most difficult of circumstances. As the divine unfolds the world can continue to unfold the divine, and it is up to us to incarnate it through contemplative activism, holy resistance, deep listening, and prophetic responses. It is an honor to have you with us here today, Alison. And there are a few other announcements. As you all know, before the service, our announcements roll before the service, thanks to incredible communications manager, Valentine. And so you have probably seen most of the announcements. They also come out on Thursdays in our email, but a quick few that just came up. As you may know, it is our biannual meeting. So after the service, instead of coffee hour, we will be rolling right into, in about 5-minute breaks, but rolling right into our biannual meeting. We'll be discussing the budget. We'll be updating you on everything that we've been doing in the last 6 months. And we hope that you will join us. We imagine it won't be any longer than an hour, probably much shorter. It's your chance to see each other and to vote on important issues. Actually, we're just voting on the budget today. So just so you know, if you aren't able to make it, that is what we're going to be voting on as we move forward. So please join us as you are able. Also, as you see, our beautiful Christmas tree is up. Thank you to the McGews for helping us with this. And thank you to all who have come to actually decorate it. In fact, Cynthia today put on a couple of Star Trek ornaments. So as we say, please, 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 as you are able, come socially distanced to the church, and you can add whatever personal flair you would like to for the tree. As we learn, Christmas tree is a pretty Unitarian tradition that was brought to the United States. So let's be Unitarian Universalists about it and bring our individual selves to make up the whole of the tree. This is a big announcement. We would like to say happy birthday to Astaire Posey, a beloved, beloved member. Now, Astaire has not always been able to get online. I will say that her birthday she is in her 90s, pretty firmly in her 90s now, though looks about 29, and is still wearing her heels. I got to see her about 2 weeks ago. She misses us so very much, and we miss her. So if you are able to, please reach out to Astaire to tell her you love her and to tell her the happiest of birthdays. And we will celebrate her when we return back in the sanctuary one day. Reverend Jim Vanderweel, our minister emeritus, also wanted to mention that he is working with organization Together Louisiana, which we also work with. And right now they are fighting what is called an ITAP, an industrial tax exemption program. And so at the moment, Folgers is requesting $12 million tax exemption. And they are pushing back against that, particularly in the time when our city, from New Orleans, and this is particularly at a time when our city is desperately in need of that funding. So he asked that you consider putting in your voice on this. You can contact Councilperson Kristen Palmer at kristen.palmer@nola.gov and share with her your reasons for opposing these exemptions. You can reach out to Reverend Jim if you would like more information, or our Justice Ministry at justice@ccuunola.org. There's also going to be a press conference, and this is why I'm saying this today, at 9:30 a.m. on Monday morning at City Hall, very masked and very quick to gather and then part. So if you'd like to join Reverend Jim, please reach out to Justice or Reverend Jim, or come to City Hall masked and ready to discuss. There's always so much more in this holiday season, but I want us to begin our service in earnest. And one more note that I cannot believe we're almost coming upon it, but our Christmas Eve service will of course be happening, and it will be at 5 p.m. on December 24th. So please mark your calendar, and we will be doing our candle lighting and all the pieces that make it so special. It's going to be different this year, but no less poignant. So with that, I'm going to read our Advent lighting for week 3. So week 3 of Advent is joy. And this is from the Reverend UU Minister, Reverend Erica Hewitt. Advent is a season of waiting, of expectation, and of longing. On this third Sunday of Advent, we light one more candle on our wreath, or our candles, the candle that represents joy. How is it, you might wonder, that we could celebrate joy when there's also so much suffering in the world? Isn't that contradictory? It's an exercise of faith to address the unknown, which can also be called the not yet known. Advent is a season of watchfulness. We listen and keep vigil for the promise of things to come. We speak and sing songs about the promise of the not yet manifest, as reflected in the words of familiar hymns. O come, Emmanuel. People look east, the time is near. Love, the guest, is on the way. There's a star in the east. It will lead you. These are the songs of the hopeful, songs of faith. These hymns encourage us to enter and consent to the practice of opening to possibility. Joy is one of the qualities that, if not yet present within us, will come to us in its own time. This light of joy, then, doesn't require that you experience joy now, today, in your immediate surroundings. Instead, it's a reminder to wait for it with faithfulness that overshadows pain and cynicism. May the lighting of this candle bring us patience, grant us faith, draw us closer to joy. And now we will light our chalice with "We Light This Flame."
We light this flame to affirm the light of truth and knowledge, the warmth of love and community, and the fire of hope and commitment.
Good morning. The story I'm going to share today is Siding with Love. Raul Cardenas came to the United States from Mexico looking for work that would support him and his parents. He found a job driving heavy machinery, and even better, he found the love of his life, Judy. What he didn't find was a way to become a legal American citizen, even after he and Judy were married. Since the laws changed after 9/11 tragedy, marrying a U.S. citizen no longer provides a path to citizenship. Like many undocumented workers in the United States, Raul just kind of hoped for the best. He and Judy were busy working, raising their daughter and Judy's 2 sons from an earlier marriage, as well as caring for Judy's elderly father. Then, in 2009, the Cardenas family got the call that turned their lives upside down. The Department of Homeland Security had discovered that Raul was in the country illegally, and they told Raul that he would be deported, sent back to Mexico. This story happens to thousands of U.S.-born children, but the Cardenas family had something going for them, and that many families in their situations don't have: a faith community prepared to get involved. The Cardenases are active members of the First Church Universalist Church of Denver, Colorado. And Judy started an immigration task force at their congregation. When the news came about the plans for Raul's deportation, the congregation sprang into action. Members began to call and write to the Department of Homeland Security and to their legislatures. The UU involvement spread. Side with Love, the Justice Campaign of the Unitarian Universalist Association, used the internet to invite people around the country to get involved. Soon, some 4,000 people had signed a petition, made calls, and sent letters and emails asking for the Cardenas family to be allowed to stay together. When the time came for Raul to have a hearing with the Denver Immigration Court of Department of Justice, 20 UU ministers from 4 different states, as well as members of the Denver congregation, showed up to support the Cardenas family. The ministers all wore their colorful liturgical stoles. The small immigration hearing room, which normally has 2 or 3 people watching their proceedings was packed with Cardenas supporters. Judge Trujillo noted the crowd's presence for the record. After the short hearing, the ministers posed outside for photos with the family while holding a large, yellow Standing on the Side of Love banner. They broke into song, singing Love Will Guide Us and Embrace Judy and Raul. At that hearing, the judge decided not to decide. That meant Raul could stay in the country for now, though he did not receive citizenship for a green card that would allow him to work. In January of 2012, President Obama announced a new policy that would focus deportation efforts on people with serious criminal records rather than anyone who was in the country without proper paperwork. The voices of all the people who have stood up for the Cardenas family and many other families are being heard. Unitarian Universalists are becoming known among people fighting for immigration rights as the love people, the people with the bright yellow t-shirts who are out in the streets and in the courtrooms and calling and writing from home with message that we are side with love. Thank you.
We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a justice-seeking people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are young and old together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a land of many colors, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are gay and straight together, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing, singing for our lives. We are a gentle, angry people, and we are singing,
Our first reading is Magnificat for today, Dianegu in Birthings and Blessings. Our souls magnify the holiness that dwells within us, and our spirits rejoice in the presence of the Holy One, because we as women have been touched and called. Yes, from this day forward, all generations will call us blessed. For great things have been done through us and those who went before us. Holy is our name, and we have shown mercy and strength as women from age to age. We have gathered for courage and steadfastness and worked to heal the brokenhearted with tenderness and care. Yes, we have been hungry and filled each other with good things. For we have kept our promises and journeyed and struggled, hope of our dreams, touching and healing, laughing and crying, questioning and loving. Yes, indeed, by our living and our faithfulness, by our passion and our courage, all generations of women from this day forth will be blessed. As we do each week at Community Church, now is our sacred time for joys and sorrows. In this time, we lift up everything that has brought us joy and happiness and gladness in this time, whether it is this week, this month, or this year, which we know there has been such hardship this year, and we know that joy always has a way of lifting and getting in there in different ways. And we recognize the sorrow and heaviness of this time. That beyond everything that is happening in our country and our world, that each of us too are holding our own sorrows. Sorrows that we don't often get to share as much as we're not gathered together in person. It is important that we share these sorrows as well. So as you are willing and as you are able, as we listen to our musical selection, Immortal Love, we ask that you write your joys and your sorrows in our Zoom chat box. And after our musical selection, I will read them aloud so that we may celebrate our joys together and hold each other in love through our sorrows. Now is our time for joys and sorrows. Thank you all. Stephanie Blinsky writes that she has a joy. Her daughter is 8 weeks old today. Congratulations. Amy Holtkamp writes of a joy. We adopted a second dog. Her name is Holly, and she's made herself right at home. Nice name. Alicia Cook writes of trying to make holiday travel decisions during a difficult time and becoming acutely aware how many people will face terrible loneliness over the holiday season, especially our elders. So very true. Thank you, Alicia. And if any or all of us are able to reach out to the members of our congregation who might be feeling isolated, please, please do. We love you all. Liz Trotter writes of sending thanks and love to all for your support while I battle this evil that is COVID-19. So happy to report that I am starting to smell again and my symptoms are finally easing up. I am so grateful to be part of this beloved community. We are so grateful that you are healing and that you are part of this community as well, Liz. Marilyn Malone writes that she is joyful that many people who generously pledged during our annual budget drive. And that is a joy that I will add on, which I don't know if we've announced, but we actually did make our annual budget drive number and exceeded it by a couple $100s. So I want to thank you all so much for your generosity in this particularly difficult time. I suppose the NPR, repeating of, this is our annual budget drive. I know that you've had to hear that these last many weeks, but we so deeply appreciate all that you do in time and give to this community in time. For all those who work to develop a vaccine and all the healthcare workers. Yes, we light a candle for those heroes. Lysidel Green, hello, writes that she would like to light a candle for Joseph's uncle Dudley. My goodness, who had a massive heart attack yesterday and died. His wife Mary is just recovering from open heart surgery. Please keep her in your thoughts and prayers. Let us lift up Mary and the entire Green family. We love you. Please know that we're here and lifting you up in love and prayer. Sally Jackson writes that her sister has addressed all of her cards to Sally, but this year's Christmas card was signed, Merry Christmas, Sis. That means it's beautiful. Heidi Netherton writes of loving the music that has been brought to this video. Yes, thank you. Dion DeVille writes of joys. My nephew Alex played his first high school football game playoff in Texas. They won 62-0. My niece Savannah made her 8th grade basketball team. My youngest nephew Logan has had a second place finish overall with his baseball team. They have taken every hit 2020 gave them in stride, and they inspire me to do the same. Joanne Roque writes, this is actually John Michael Roque, writes, as a Grampy, I delight that my 6-year-old grandson, Sebi, has mastered the ability to steal away and make phone calls to me on his own. I can attest to that. What fun. By the way, this musical program is sublime. Thanks. Jacqueline Block writes that her joy was bringing Lillian and Chloe to CCUU Wednesday to put some ornaments on the tree. Lillian speaks of missing church and ran around telling Chloe, this is our church. Then we played on the slides before leaving. Gonna get me choked up. We all miss our church, I think, but thankful for this service. Very true. Howard Milkey writes that his joy is to celebrate the birthdays via Zoom of his grandsons Walter, 8, and Simon, 6 years old. I hope for their good futures. We do as well. Oh. Heidi Netherton writes that her sorrow this week is that her best friend Panda, her 12-year-old dog, was diagnosed with a collapsed trachea. His horrible cough pains me. We send love. I have, amidst these difficult times, another small joy. I think it's a big joy. I was made by our incredible CCUU youth leader, Amelia Earhart Lovelace, who has been running our tech with our incredible incredible friend of the church, Eric Reed, who has been doing this for us for so many months, the Tech Force 14. So I was made a name tag that tells me that I'm the Chief Inspiration Officer, of which I feel very, very honored. As you can see, Cynthia is the Chief Galactic Artist of Tech Force 14. And we have Eric as the Chief Overlord and Amelia as the Chief Underlord, correct? Yes. So my joy is this: people stepping up to help volunteer. If you would like to come join this galactic team, we invite you. We need more help. But also the creativity and the care of the members of our community. Thank you, Amelia and Amy, her mother, for helping put this together and helping making a situation that is very difficult, the times that we're living and trying to record our services, that much more fun and loving and connective. We love you all and we thank you all. So with that, let us light one more candle for all the joys that are just bubbling up, that we've yet to share, but that are there and present. We celebrate with you, and all the sorrows that are too hard at this time to bear. We recognize that when there is a time that you are able to share these sorrows, please know that we are here and that we love you.
You dropped your thing. Oh, I'm sorry. Community Church Unitarian Universalists is a self-sustaining congregation. Members and friends' generosity help us to do the sacred work of bringing justice, spirituality, and compassion to our community and beyond. You can give online, by text, or in the mail. Check your chat box to see all the ways you can give, and remember to pledge today. And as you give, we will be listening to a beautiful piece with the guest musician who will introduce himself to us now.
Hi, my name is DeVell Crawford, also known as the Prince of New Orleans, and I'm honored to be your special guest today for the CCUU. Don't forget to wear a mask and stay safe. I hear you. I can see clearly now that the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. All the dark clouds that just passed me by. It's gonna be a bright, oh, bright sunshiny day. Gonna be a bright sunshiny day. I think I can make it now that the pain is gone. All of the bad feelings have disappeared. I hear you. But here's the rainbow that we've been praying for. Gonna be a bright, oh, a bright sunshiny day. Gonna be a bright sunshiny day. skies. Well, sir, look all around, there's nothing but blue skies. I can see clearly now that the rain is gone. I can see all obstacles in my way. All of the dark clouds that just passed me by, well, it's gonna be a bright, oh, bright sunshine day. I hear you. Oh, Lord, a bright, such a bright, well, sunshiny day. Oh, well, oh, Lord, bright, oh, bright, bright sunshiny day. Hey, oh, bright, oh, bright sunshiny day. Freedom, 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 freedom. Everybody singing with me, freedom, freedom, freedom. Sing the song. Freedom, oh, freedom, oh, freedom, oh, freedom.
Our next reading is a version of the Canticle of Mary as found in the Christian scriptures of Luke 1, verse 46 through 55. And this version is written by Sister Janet Shaffrin, CDP, and Sister Pat Kozak, CSJ, from their book, More Than Words. My spirit takes delight in the presence of our God. My heart is filled with laughter, and my words fall short of the truth I long to express. For the one whom I love is faithful. Our ancestors have known compassion through the ages, and this day mercy is given to us. Holy is the love, and sacred is the place where we met. We are in awe of the gift that is ours. The powerful have stumbled, and the rich are burdened and fall. We are proud. The proud are alone in their confusion, while before our eyes the weak are upheld in kindness. The poor are called by name, the hungry are nourished with bread that never grows old. The promise endures. The one whom we love is faithful, and life gives birth to beauty and truth. Our spirits take delight in the wondrous presence of our God. Holy is this love. We are in awe of the gift that is ours. Good morning, family of justice, of mercy, of compassion. It's a privilege to worship with you all today. Thank you for inviting me to your beautiful community, Church Unitarian Universalist, as your guest preacher today. I speak today from the Catholic tradition of which I practice. I'm aware that there are many traditions or no tradition at all from where each of us find that which is meaningful or divine or holy. We are each on our own journey or path that gives us meaning in life. The Christian season of Advent is one where I find richness and depth on my own journey into becoming more fully whole and more fully one with the divine. Part of this season tells the story of Mary, the mother of Jesus, making a physical home for the Holy One in her womb and in the world. And so we too are prophetically called by this God of many names to make a dwelling place within ourselves and the world, to birth more love, justice, mercy, compassion, and hope in the world. And so today I'll be focusing on this Song of Mary that's heard in the Christian scriptures of Luke and the version that we just heard. Mary's song flows from unpremeditated space in her heart. Her words are a spontaneous response upon being pronounced as blessed by her relative Elizabeth, an expectant mother of the later to be John the Baptist. Mary's song also falls during the silence of a man named Zechariah, who was the husband of Elizabeth. Both stories appear in Luke, in the Christian scriptures of Luke chapter 1, with Mary's song filling this meanwhile kind of space, this in-between moment when Zechariah loses his voice and the point at which he gets it back again. It's the longest passage in scripture spoken by a woman, and it comes at a point when a man has gone silent. Go figure. So surely there is a lesson. Marginalized voices to go silent for a season and listen to the words spoken from the edge of the wilderness. Western Christianity, as it so often does with women, has tamed Mary's voice. We've relegated her to this silent role in the nativity play. Mary, pure and lowly, Mary, meek and mild. These are the songs that we sing about Mary. And most artists render her, well, first of all, as white, and not this pure as, Snow White, but as super Anglo-European white, surrounded by a saintly heavenly glow. And she gives birth in a barn without any drugs or any kind of medication. And she appears just in time for the final version of Silent Night, without a hair out of place, with no sweat, no tears, looking so pure and holy. And certainly not a word spoken against the patriarchy in this version of Mary. The Western ways of seeing Mary simply aren't true. We would also be wise to keep in mind the larger context in which Mary spoke the words in her prayer, known as the Magnificat Prayer. Mary's time was a time of great uncertainty. Much like ours today, Mary faced a bleak future, a future that was unknown. And today, as we are in this global pandemic, we're in a climate crisis. We have a big change in our national administration in this country. We have an ever-widening gap of the rich and the poor. We have daily killings of Black and brown people, whether through executions of people on death row or of police killings, and the list goes on and on. There's no lack of a bleak future or a bleak present moment here and now. And so while we hold on to this pain and suffering of the world, and as we move towards the pain and suffering of the world, we are also called, like Mary, in this uncertain time, in this painful time, to bring forth justice, mercy, and love. Back then in Mary's time, when an unwed teenage peasant girl was found pregnant, it usually resulted in devastating retribution from the community. In the Christian scriptures of Matthew's gospel, that account informs us that Joseph, the man that Mary was planning to marry, that he was planning to call off their wedding. His discreetness was an attempt to protect Mary from public humiliation and being socially ostracized. According to Jewish law, Mary faced the very real threat of being stoned for adultery. Thus, in the words of Yale divinity professor and Episcopalian minister Carolyn Sharp, she wrote, "Don't envision Mary as the radiant woman peacefully composing the Magnificat Prayer. Instead, see her as a girl who sings defiantly to her God through her tears, fist clenched against an unknown future." And when we do this, Reverend Sharp goes on to say that Mary's courageous song of praise becomes a radical resource for those seeking to honor the holy amid the suffering and conflicts of real life. Frequently throughout history, people on the margins have identified with this powerful poem of Mary's Magnificat and have been inspired to believe that the Holy One can bring liberation to their plight. In fact, in the past century, at least 3 different countries have banned the public recitation of Mary's Magnificat Prayer. These governments considered the song's message to be dangerously subversive. During the British rule of India, the Magnificat was prohibited from being sung in church. In the 1980s, Guatemala's government discovered Mary's words about God's preferential love for the poor to be too dangerous and revolutionary. The song had been creating quite the stirring among Guatemala's impoverished masses. Mary's words were inspiring to the Guatemalan poor to believe that change was indeed possible. Thus, their government banned any recitation of Mary's words. Similar, after the mothers of the Plaza de Mayo, whose children all disappeared during the Dirty War, they placed the Magnificat's words on posters throughout the capital's plaza. And the military of Argentina outlawed any public display of Mary's song. The German theologian Bonhoeffer was someone who opposed the Nazi regime. He was arrested, he was persecuted, he was transferred to a concentration camp, and then he was hung to death. And he recognized the revolutionary nature of Mary's song. Before being executed by the Nazis, Bonhoeffer spoke these words in a sermon during Advent of 1933. The Song of Mary is the oldest Advent hymn. It is at once the most passionate, the wildest, one might even say the most revolutionary Advent hymn ever sung. It is not the gentle, tender, dreamy Mary, whom we sometimes see in paintings. This song has none of the sweet, nostalgic, or even playful tones of some of our Christmas carols. It is instead a hard, strong, inexorable song about the power of God and the powerlessness of humankind. And so how do we hear Mary's words afresh for us today? Normally, when we read or we listen to Mary's Magnificat, we're tempted to soften its message and spiritualize its meaning. When I was a Catholic nun for almost 13 years, when I lived in convents, we prayed what is called the office prayer every day. And we read the Magnificat at every one of those prayers. And honestly, it became kind of rote and lost its meaning over time. But I'd like for us to read Mary's song afresh, as if it were for the first time. And when we do, let's be asking why so many have understood Mary's message to be subversive and revolutionary. And beyond considering other people's interpretations, let's be trying to understand what Mary meant by her words. What sort of things did Mary expect God to do through this announcement of inviting her to birth love, to birth God into the world? If she was to birth that which she was told to be birthing, the Messiah, what did she see as her child's mission on earth? What sort of things did Mary anticipate that her child would accomplish or do? And what does that mean for us and our mission on earth? What is our reason for existing? The God incarnate that Mary was anticipating to birth is referred to in the Magnificat as the mighty one who topples rulers, scatters the proud, and sends the rich away empty-handed. However, this person is also one who is mindful of the lowly, exalts the humble, fills the hungry with good things, and helps those who serve. In other words, Mary anticipates that this Messiah that she's giving birth to will bring about wondrous reversals into the world. Mary envisions God's anointed one upsetting the status quo by turning virtually everything on its head upside down. She envisions one who brings vengeance upon King Herod and the entire political establishment that the king represented. She envisions one who inverts human structures and values, toppling rulers from their thrones of power and dominion. When Mary is prophetically called in the Gospel of Luke to give birth to God the incarnate, it's also an invitation for us to be prophetic during the season of Advent and beyond, to prepare the manger of our hearts and to prepare to birth more love into the world. For to harness the power of love is to know that even in the chaos of a pandemic, violence, and global suffering, that God is there embracing us. God is there guiding us through it. And God is the wholeness and God is the future of love. And love shines through and breaks through into something more. Love means accepting the uncontrollable and accepting the complexities of this material world that we're in, just as Mary did in her time. This season of longer days and less light is an invitation for us to open up a space for the divine and the sacred to dwell within each of us. Holding on to radical hope, peace, love, and joy during this Advent season, with all that 2020 is and has been, is prophetic in and of itself. And so let's explore how Mary responded to her call to be a prophet of her time and how we're called to be prophets today. Mary's encounter with God's messenger, the angel Gabriel, it came in the midst of everyday life. And our callings to prophetic actions of justice, love, mercy, and compassion also come at inconvenient times and in the midst of everyday life, whether it's in the grocery store line or walking around the block in our neighborhood, on a Zoom call, or pumping gas, or taking the phone call from a friend in need. Moses, for example, was just tending to his father-in-law's sheep when God's angel appeared to him in Exodus. And likewise, Mary is presented as an ordinary Galilean girl making wedding plans when God's messenger comes to her. Prophets always seem to resist the calls, and we often resist calls too, and we have to make space to listen. We often think what we're being asked to do is beyond our capabilities. In the Christian tradition, Moses said he couldn't speak well, and Jeremiah objected that he was too young. Isaiah worried that he was a man of unclean lips, and Mary objects that what she heard from the angel Gabriel is simply impossible. Prophets also resist because they know that they risk rejection and suffering if they respond to the calls that the Spirit puts on their hearts. These same elements are those of a prophetic call found in other places throughout the Christian scriptures. When Jesus calls his first disciples, Simon and his partners, James and John, they're going about their everyday work, cleaning their fishing nets when they encounter Jesus. Jesus calls them to leave their nets and to follow him. This disrupted the entire economic system of the time. They didn't simply just walk behind Jesus with their nets, because those nets belonged to the government. The empire controlled the entire labor system and all of the workers of the time. Leaving their nets behind was a radical act. The Spirit also calls those who are least impressive by human standards when it comes to revealing the divine's mystery in the world. David, for example, was the youngest and the least qualified one, and he was taken from pasturing his sheep to lead a people. Mary, again, was an ordinary young woman making wedding plans in the insignificant little town of Galilee when she was asked to take on the seemingly impossible role. When have we doubted our own abilities? When have we played too small, resisting the invitations to be a prophetic voice, a prophetic presence, or to engage in prophetic acts? What God is asking is incomprehensible for Mary. Mary questions, how can this be? In addition, in her tiny village where everyone knows everyone else and many people are related to one another, everyone knows that she and this man have not yet begun to live together. What will they say about her? And what kind of nasty looks will they cast on her when her precious child is born too soon? For Mary, the angel's message comes as a blessing, but very much a blessing in disguise. It's placing her in a very difficult position socially, culturally, religiously, and personally. She has to trust the interior movements of her heart and to go with it, and she does. In our lives, there are turning points where many of us experience an invitation to experience something difficult rather than to discard it. Something which wrecks our dream for ourselves or our loved ones. There's a need to discern the spirits, as the Ignatian spiritual tradition calls it. Is there a release from something into another way of being more open, of being more spontaneous, of being more generous, more humble, more deeper into the service of humanity and into the service of creation itself? Scripture leaves no doubt that the divine is a long-range planner. God can determine a whole series of events to come to maturity in their own good time. In fact, the planning of each of you for the divine to live within you is billions of years old. In fact, it's 13.8 billion years old when the Big Bang happened up to present day. And the Spirit has been planning for you and the meaning for your life up until this very point. And like Mary, the divine's grand plan in order for it to come to completion, it needs our cooperation. It needs our yes. The divine has something in mind for each of us to do. And like Mary, we are to bear the good news to others. And we will receive help along the way, as Mary did. The sacred is speaking to us, but how are we listening? We can listen in the silence. Are we carving out enough space during this season of Advent to listen deeply to these invitations? And when we listen to the invitations, we then have to respond to the invitations. Mary didn't just respond and say, okay, I'll do this thing. In the scripture, she said, yes, let it be done to me according to your will. She consented. She consented out of freedom to the act of God within her. And if we say yes, the work of justice in our world will be brought forward. And so like Mary, dare we say yes? Here I am, the servant of the holy, the servant of God, the servant of the divine. Let it be done to me according to your word. It's so simple and yet so radical. Can we, like Mary, move from total fear to total trust of the divine's design for each of us? In the Christian story, Mary makes this physical home for the Holy One within her, and hers was a unique role. But we also have a role, and we too are called to make a dwelling place within ourselves for this revolutionary way of being and doing in the world. We are called to birth God into the world every day, to birth love, to birth justice, to birth hope every day. And so what will you be doing? How are you preparing the manger of your heart for a radical yes? For the deep listening time each day, to listen to the invitations and to respond wholeheartedly with a yes, consenting to the divine's work within you. It's not in glorious buildings, beautifully adorned, but it's in the humblest of persons and the most difficult of circumstances that the sacred decides to take up residence. It's in the midst of messy situations where it seems impossible to make space for a newcomer. And then we are reassured of grace, and we are reassured that we have all that we need to manifest that which calls us, asking us to trust that whatever is holy and sacred can and will bring forth blessing, and we can incarnate it in our own bodies and our own lives to continue the mission of love in the world. And so while there's a place for temples and churches and Zoom calls where we can gather as people to experience the sacred, the Holy One would first have us recognize that this divinity walks around in the midst of human skin. And as the divine unfolds in the world can continue to unfold the divine. And it is up to us to incarnate it through contemplative activism, through holy resistance, through deep listening, and through prophetic responses. And so as we sung, O come, Emmanuel, earlier today, we say, O come, God, dwell within us. Emmanuel means God within us. And so we pray and we sing, O come, Emmanuel, during this season of Advent. For our benediction today, I send all of you forth to bring about justice, hope, love, compassion, and mercy into the world, to birth the love that is yours to birth into the world, to be a people of joy, to be a people of peace, of compassion, of love, to let joy live in your heart, and to share the joy of Christ, the peace of Christ with all you meet, Christ of whatever names you call that. May you share joy by acting out of compassion and not fear. May you share joy and peace by praying for our world. And during the season of Advent, we need to see, feel, and share the love, peace, and joy within this world. I invite you to stay on this Zoom call for those of you who will be joining the general meeting for today. And thank you again for having me as your guest. Amen.